Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Colossians. We're still in chapter 1. Today we begin reading at verse 15. Now this next paragraph is the first great statement of who Christ is in the book of Colossians. I've already mentioned in our first several sessions that the Colossian church was facing a false teaching, a heresy. Theologians and historians call it the Colossian heresy. We'll talk in some detail about it as we go through the book, but basically the heresy denied who Christ was, the fullness of who Jesus was. Now, Paul wants to counter that by stating very clearly and with great insight the fullness of who Jesus was, who Jesus is. So a couple of times in the book, he has these great statements of faith, these great professions of belief about who Jesus is. And the first one begins in verse 15. Now you remember in verses 13 and 14, he had been talking about redemption and says we've been redeemed by Christ and brought into the kingdom of the Son of God, who's Jesus. He is the Son of God and the Son of Man. So we become part of the kingdom of the Son. And now he starts to talk about the Son, who the Son is, who the Son of God is. Notice what he says, verse 15. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Now this is about 6 verses, but they are so powerful and there's so much meaning in these verses. And we're going to spend the next few sessions talking about this paragraph that says to us so much about Jesus. First, it tells us that the Son, Jesus, the Son of God and the Son of Man, the Son is the image of the invisible God. What does that mean? Well, we know that in the Old Testament, it's made clear that no man can see God directly. Over and over and over again, we're told that no one can see God face to face, that they cannot take in the brilliance of who God is. Now, they encounter God, and they see manifestations of God. For instance, you remember that God came and spoke to Abraham one day, but he came in appearance as a man. At first, it just looked like a man who came and ate with Abraham, but it was God. We see that over and over again in the Old Testament, but it's also made quite clear no one can see the full glory of God. That is beyond mortal means or human abilities. We can't see God directly. That's what Paul is saying here, the invisible God. But the Son is the image of God. In other words, when Jesus stepped in the world, he is God taking upon himself flesh that we might see him and behold him and hear him and encounter him in a much more direct way. He is the full image of God. And of course, in the Old Testament, one of the commands is you shall not make an image of God. You shall not create an idol because it's impossible. But Jesus is the image of God, sent from God as God stepping into our world. He is fully God among us, also fully human. He became man, but also God still, so that we might see God in Jesus. He is God in the flesh. That's what we mean by the incarnation, a great Christian doctrine that expresses that God became man. Still being God, but fully man, fully God, fully man among us. He is the image of the invisible God. We could never see God with our physical eyes. The Old Testament makes that clear. But God stepped into human history with us that we might see him. The Son is the image of God. Now, a little bit later, we're going to see that one of the things about this Colossian heresy was that they described Jesus as a great supernatural being, but not really fully God. So Paul counters up and says, oh yes, he is fully God. He is the image, the representation of God among us. He is God among us. So that's where Paul begins, but there's more. There's more. So join us next time as we continue looking at this great paragraph on who Jesus is. I'll see you next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Colossians.